Good day, grade 12 parents. My name is Mr. Hloma, and I am your mathematics teacher for the current grade 12s. Allow me to go through a couple of these slides just to give you an idea of what we have covered, what is still need to be covered, and what is still in store for your children as we try to prepare them for the final exams. Please feel free to contact me via email or phone call if you have got any questions on what I am going to present today for clarification. Thank you. So, in term 1 and 2, we have covered sequence and series, which is a paper 1 content. We have also covered the inverse functions and their inverses, which is also paper 1 content. And this topic covers about a third of paper 1, so it is very important that the grade 12s still remember what they did in grade 10, in grade 11, and in grade 12 in terms of graphs and functions and their inverses, so that they will, because it covers a lot of marks in the final exams. Then we have got financial mathematics, which is plus or minus 25 marks in their final exam. Then you have got cubic polynomials and also what we call calculus, which we will explain later, but this also covered a bit of this content in paper 1. And then we go to the paper 2, trigonometry, which also covers plus or minus about 45 marks towards their paper 2 IEB exam, analytical geometry, which is also a paper 2 content. Then in term 3 and in term 4, what we have covered and what we still need to cover, we are currently busy with the calculus, which is also part of calculus. I think it includes the cubic polynomials, which I've explained in term 1 and 2, that was already covered. This covers a lot of marks in paper 1 also, so they also need to understand this topic very well, because if they are going to do anything that has to do with mathematics next year at tertiary level, this is where mathematics start. Then we have got probability, which covers plus or minus 20 marks out of 150 of the one. We are yet to cover this, and we hope to complete it well in advance before their final exam, so that they can have enough practice. We started on statistics 2 weeks ago, and we hope to complete it very soon, so that at least they can write these statistics in their prelim exams. Then we have Euclidean geometry, which also covers a lot of marks in paper 2, and they need to understand their theorems which are covered in this Euclidean geometry and remember what they did in grade 11. And because most of the work was covered in grade 11, we are just going to complete a few theorems in grade 12. Right, so what I've done is, in order to avoid rushing through some of the topics which are not covered as illustrated above, I have scheduled some Saturday classes where I will go through this topic and also do some typical exam revision, so that I can give them enough time and justice to this topic, so that at least I know that they are well prepared. So it is very important for those who are not coming to school but are able to come to school. Please go through whatever we have prepared in class. Do the typical exam questions, do the past exam papers that I'm always sending on these Saturdays, and make sure you have covered it, because after these Saturday lessons, I always post a detailed memo to explain how the questions were supposed to cover. But there are a couple of people in grade 12 who are not doing this work, or because they are not submitting it to me as requested. So my assumption is they are not doing it. So my principle is, if you have done something, send me what you have done. I will give you feedback on it, so that you can learn from your mistake on what you have covered. Right. So as some of you might be aware that the final mark for in mathematics or in any other subject, the 25% of that final mark comes from work that is covered at school. That's what we call school-based assessment. So where it is written SBA, you know that, okay, so this work is going to be counting towards this SBA, the school-based assessment, the 25% component of their final mark. So not everything that we have done will count towards their final. There are selected items or tasks that will be counting towards this, and your people or your our pupils, your child rather, they know exactly that this task counts towards their SBA, and that's where they need to to put their blood and sweat out, if I can put it that way. And then they need to do their best in this, because once they mess up this, it means they are just putting more pressure on themselves. So the two items which is going to be written on the 8th of August, this counts 10% towards the SBA. So the 25% component of their final mark. So 10% will be from this portfolio item, and the test that they are going to write on the 15th of August, again, this counts 10% towards this SBA component. Then we come to the breakdown of marks in term 1, how the marks were actually calculated in term 1. So there were 4 assessment tasks, and each counted 25% towards the mark that you saw on your child's report at the end of term 1. They remember the term 1 report was actually given on the before we close on the 26th of June. So these are the tasks that counted. We did more, but these were the selected tasks that counted towards that mark. Then we come to term 3 report, and also that SBA component that I was talking about. So you can actually see these are the items that are going to count towards the final mark. So how am I going to make them actually count towards the term 3? So the idea is, let's kill a bird with 2 stones. If I can put it that way, the assessment tasks which are going to count towards the SBA are the same assessment tasks which are going to be on the report for your child. So the paper 1 prelim exam counts 38 towards the report, and it will have 15 marks will count towards the SBA. Paper 2, 38 and 15 marks towards the SBA. Then we have got a long item. I think some of you might be aware that you saw your child recording themselves, or someone recording them. Some of you also might have assisted them just to try to record on the technical side, which I thank you very much for doing that. That project that they did during the holiday, the June-July holiday, it is going to count 25 marks towards their final, where they were creating some mind maps, they were doing some recordings of what they have self-studied, and then trying to show me that they understood, and they were also, I think, doing some research here and there on this topic, so that I can assess how broadly or they understand this topic. Then we have got the short item, which is going to be written on the 8th of August, which I said now this is more like a multiple choice mixed topic. So I'll give them a multiple choice, but they're expected to show they're working in this multiple choice, but it's not marked just like any other assessment. There's a rubric that we use. So this will count 5% towards the term 3 mark, but it will count 12.25 marks towards the SBA component. Then they will write a test on mixed topics again, which they will be informed well in advance before the test on the 15th of August, which is very close to the prelim, so they should be prepared well enough for this test, covering a range of topics which I will give them. 5% towards term 3 report, but 12.5% towards the SBA. By the way, I just want to confirm it is not the school that decides the weighting, the 15, 15, 25, 12.5 that you see there. That is stipulated by the IEB, sorry. And we just implement what the IEB actually informs us to say this is how you are supposed to calculate this. And they will be moderating all this task to see that they are up to standard. The level of difficulty of these papers is as expected by the IEB. All these assessments that you see there, they will be internally and externally moderated. Then the September exams. So what will be in paper 1 and what will be in paper 2? So this is what your child need to study for paper 1: algebra, equations and inequality, finance, financial mathematics, functions and graphs, cubic, polynomials and calculus. Very important topics, including the functions and the graph. They weigh a lot of the paper 1. I think 2/3 of this paper are based on these two topics. Functions and graph, it's like a topic. Cubic, polynomial and calculus, it's like a topic on its own. So 2/3, like 50-50 marks if you think of it. Then the rest of the 50 marks comes from the other three topics, the first two and the last one, which is probability. Then in paper 2, there is what we call bookwork. Bookwork is like proofs, where we ask them to prove something that we have already done in class. That's why we call it bookwork, because the proofs are already in the books. So this bookwork, a maximum of 6 marks will be asked on a particular proof that we have already covered, and mostly it comes from Euclidean geometry. So your child will know there are about 9 theorems that were covered in grade 11, and we are still going to cover about 3 or 4 in grade 12. So one of those proofs will be asked as is in their question paper, so they need to know. I don't know which one, so they need to be safe. I think they need to know all of them. Then we have got statistics, trigonometric graphs, and Euclidean geometry. So trig functions will be asked in paper 2. So we have got also, on top of trig graphs, I think something that I think I skipped is trigonometric identities, equation, and all those under trig graphs. So we can ask all those. So those two topics, trigonometric and trig graphs and Euclidean geometry, they also cover like 2/3 of this paper. So it is very important that they prepare thoroughly on these sections.